Hi there, nature journalers. I have had a number of people on the Facebook group ask me to go over how I do my weather wheel. And this weather wheel is actually to track fire weather, so I should probably start titling this a little more accurately to be a fire weather wheel. Although the technique and what I'm doing here, you could probably use to track a mix of other things related to weather. So maybe you want to connect the plants in your garden or your moods or something. So this is a technique that you could use to monitor daily weather, and then a visual you could use to kind of try and add a little more meaning to what that daily weather looks like. So I'm going to turn my camera around so you can look at this a little easier and try and explain what I have been doing. Okay, so these two pages here, this weather wheel is something that's actually been evolving, and I have been experimenting with how I can track and sort of visually represent weather and what it looks like and feels like, and tie it to fire. So this gives you an example for each day throughout the whole month. And so what I do is I start off coming up with the number of days in the month, and then trying to have as equal of parts for each day, doing kind of a pie, and creating each of those little spots. You might be able to see closer that I have a little sun showing that this upper row is for daytime and this bottom one is for the nighttime. I'm looking at kind of trends, and I'm lumping a lot of these weather things, so it really isn't a big deal if the weather I'm getting is not exact, but it is important to use the same source of weather. So whichever weather site you use, just stick with that. The daily weather I am actually tracking in this other little journal, my little daily journal. Each week, since this is a weekly thing here, I would try and do a little sketch of some of the vegetation or something that stood out to me that was an example of what the vegetation conditions were like in the area, because obviously what the vegetation is like is critical to understanding fire. So those little sketches are important, and then what I will do is pick some of my favorite or a couple examples for the month and put that in my monthly fire weather wheel, which is this one. And so this particular month there was a ton of moisture, and there was some really cool thunderstorms. So I had one day seen awesome thunderstorm and drew that in there. I had also been an area that I walk each day with my dogs. This has become very dry, and all the flowers were gone from like my other sketches, so I tried to show dry vegetation. I also decided that it would be handy on this page to show kind of a map of my area. So I'm in the Sacramento area, so I just did a little kind of overview of a map of where I am. It's kind of handy to add context. So besides tracking temperature, moisture, and wind, I wanted to connect what I was seeing for fire. And so I didn't mention before, there are some websites and places you can go to see if there are fires in your area. And I actually, this one particular satellite website I go to will tell me if there's a hot spot, which it doesn't differentiate if it's a wildfire or not. It's just there's some kind of fire. And because in May there was so much moisture and there were no wildfires, I would be willing to bet that all of these hot spots were prescribed fires, burn piles, that knowing that this is the kind of weather where it's dry enough to burn things, but it's moist enough at night, that's a good time for prescribed fire. So I'm going to guess these hot spots were within 50 miles of me were prescribed fires and burn piles. And then there are other little color flames that I'm using for if it's actually a wildfire. So you would see in the other months, in the summer months, that these would become different colors coming around here or have a mix of them. So that's one thing that's kind of neat to track over time if you're looking at all these things and you have some plant or something that you want to connect to weather, to notice any changes in these And if you're seeing something that doesn't seem to make sense for that month, that say in June I have more dry yellow orange at night, but I'm not having so many fires, it probably means that this was just something else like prescribed fire. Let's see, so something else to explain in my fire weather wheel, which is important, is the data. So it didn't seem like it would be meaningful for me to put the exact weather, like it's 100 degrees or it's whatever temperature. It seemed more important to lump them into a general sense of the weather. And so I picked these little ranges of temperatures and moisture. And the way I sort of did that is that if you were to go to some of the online National Weather Service and other websites that have red flag warnings, they actually can they do break out what ranges of weather are that critical fire weather. So I basically had found out for the Sacramento Valley and where I live that these moisture and these ending ranges for winds and moistures are what would be a threshold to trigger extreme fire weather. And then I just decided to do groupings that I thought made a nice range. I don't, because just those individual numbers wouldn't mean a whole lot, but something that is giving you a sense. And so I kind of, in my mind, thought little blue dots might be a good visual for moisture. So I'm adding little blue dots if something is within these different moisture ranges. And then in the block, it's a color based on the color range of that day. And then these are the little winds or these little arrow chevrons that are each in here. And there might be better visual ways to demonstrate that, but that is what this month, how I was experimenting with it. And in the middle here, I have, it's a little circle in 4 little pies, pie wedges for the week. And there's an online site. If people are interested, I can put together a list of the websites that I go to for a lot of this information. And let me think, is there anything I am missing here on my fire weather wheel? I think that pretty much does it. So one thing I noticed that I had forgotten to mention is part of this inner wheel that I talked about, the online website that has the fire danger rating for that month or week, that online site for a region. Then I have, this is my little legend for what those colors and what those little sections would mean. So, and these colors are actually what they have a color code on that website. So you would be able to see what the range is and then copy that over in that general area. So that's where I came up with that little legend for the fire danger rating at a regional level. And then this is just overall, like I said, monthly and daily fire weather is what I'm tracking here. So hopefully that helps. And if you want some links to some of the online sites, you might already have all of that kind of information and be able to find all of that. But I hope that helps. Bye.